see when you're not going to be in town. Well, we got to December and he said, "Is that all?" And I went, "Yeah, it's all. I mean, unless something comes up I don't know about."
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's show. And I am so excited that I am spending some time here with Byron Ballard. Most people know who she is, the incomparable, amazing Byron. How are you doing, lady?
I am very well. I went over my schedule today with my husband. He said, "I just want to see when you're not going to be in town." We got to December and he said, "Is that all?" And I went, "Yeah, it's all. I mean, unless something comes up I don't know about right now." But I've turned down some invitations this year
Hmm.
because last year was too much. It was just
Hmm.
too much. The things
Hmm.
that feed me, really spiritually feed me, are the land here
Hmm.
and my temple family here. And I was
Hmm.
away from both of those things way too much last year.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, your schedule last year was crazy. I see that this year's schedule is, from what I can see, what's been posted anyway so far. It's actually not very much, but you will be in my area around for Pagan Unity Festival. It looks like, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that near you?
It's fairly near me. Well, when you consider that you live 1,500 miles away, 600 miles away is actually close.
Yes, I'm going to be back there this year. I'm so happy to return to that festival. It's a sweet festival.
It is indeed. So, you have been, as always, you're incredibly busy. And of course, in September, you released Small Magics, Practical Secrets from an Appalachian village witch. Um, and it's an intriguing book to me, because, I think about the time that I've spent with you and some of the classes that you've had, and that you are always right. You cut right to the quick, and there's nothing there's nothing. What's the word I'm looking for? You certainly don't hide anything under a bushel. That's for sure. And I love here. It says that Small Magics, this last book, was you were having face-to-face lessons on her porch. And I can imagine that's exactly, and that you teach the mechanics and foundational skills of practice, offering no nonsense techniques to the practitioners of any skill level and tradition. Um, I really want to talk about that because the new book, which we're going to talk about later, is even more what I would call in your face for those of us that are traditionally trained. And it's really awesome because you cut through all this stuff. Um, so I'd love to talk about that. I mean, how does that come about? I know you're very involved with Appalachian folk magic, but there's just so much, I mean, how do you do it? How do you do it?
Well, and the reason I wrote that book, I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory about the magic book. I've been teaching now for 6 or 7 years a class I call Simple Practical Magic.
Hmm.
And I started doing that because I kept running into people at festivals and conferences. And, all they really wanted to do was to know the spell to do this particular thing. But they didn't understand that the uses of magic are a process, that there are stepping stones that you can use no matter what you practice. There's stepping stones that allow you to practice magic efficiently and effectively. And the first time I taught that class here at home in Asheville, I had a couple of ceremonial magicians who showed up, frankly, just to bust my chops, I
Of
think.
course.
And I was saying things that were directly counter to what they understood magic to be. But by the end of the class, they were like, "So are you telling me that you can harvest energy from the world around you and either immediately utilize that energy or store that energy for later?" And I said, Yes. Is that not something you were trained to do? No, it wasn't.
Mm-mm.
It wasn't something they were trained to do. So
Mhm.
it I don't actually mean to be in your face to anyone who has a more esoteric style of magic work, but there are so many people now. I mean, I was trained by human beings. I didn't read a lot of books. I had people who said, "This is how you ground, practice it right now." I had people, we would go to festivals in the 90s, and we would pull energy up into a ball that you held in your hands, and you'd pass that energy back and forth. So it was all about utilizing energy that's all around you, never using your personal energy, because that personal energy is your life force. And really, you're gonna tinker with some of that stuff just so you can get back at somebody you're mad at? That's foolishness. So I started teaching this class just as a way to to suggest to people that there might be an easier way to accomplish what they want to accomplish. Um, and I was having yet another argument, as we all do in social media. And I said, "Oh, for the love of Mike, do I need to write a book based on that simple practical magic class?" And I don't know, 100 people, 200 people said, "Yes, yes, 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 please, yes, please." One of those people, who later sent me an email, was my editor at Llewellyn, who said, that sounds yummy. So that's how that whole thing got started. And most of the reviews that I've heard about, I don't read reviews. So for those of you who are watching this and you wrote me a beautiful glowing review, thank you for that. But I tell my marketing people, if there's something that you want me to see, you're gonna have to send it to me, because I don't go to Amazon and read review. I just don't read reviews, because I don't write books for reviews. I write books
Mhm.
so that people get something from them. And what is meaningful to me is when someone will send me an email and say, "I just read XYZ book and I want to tell you how that changed my life." And they do that.
Mm.
I mean, I get one of those. I've written 8 books now, so I
Yes, you
get one
have.
of those about once a week from one or the other of the books. There was a big discussion this past week about, and I don't know if you know about the group of people called Melungeons.
I've heard of them. I don't
Yeah,
know
but they
much.
were they were a mystery for years and years in North Carolina, and there were legends that they had come from Eastern Europe, or that they were Portuguese. There were all these kind of lovely romantic legends, and then DNA came on the horizon, and we found out what their blood told us about them. But it's a fascinating culture that was ostracized. It's a blend of three cultures that was ostracized by an awful lot of people, and they felt they needed to assimilate so that they could survive. So that we've had that big discussion, and out of that, one of my cousins contacted me, and she said, "Have you ever heard that my great grandfather was a Melungeon?" And I was like, "No."
Oh,
And
wow.
I don't share that part of her lineage,
Hmm.
because her great grandmother and my grandmother were sisters. So
Mm.
I don't have that piece over there. And I said, "I always heard that your great grandfather was Cherokee." And she said, "Yeah, me too." So you just never know when you get into these things on Facebook. Number one, who's going to be hurt, that it's even being discussed, but also people who never thought about that thing before, and
Hmm.
now maybe they're going to think about it a little bit. So I tell you, you just don't know. But I have, you talk about, I'm well known, I guess, for my Appalachian work, because that is both my practice and my study. So I do
Hmm.
a lot of research about that too, and I love to talk to other people who do what I do. And there's only really a handful of us that are pretty traditional
Hmm.
crafters.
Hmm.
But it's hot right now. Everybody loves folk
Hmm.
magic. Everybody loves Appalachian folk magic, and you know, heaven love them. They're gonna they're going to either get something from it or they're not. But we are past, and I would love to see it return, but I don't think it will. We are past the age where people came to a teacher's house and they all had supper together, or they
Mm-hmm.
spent the day together and they
Mm-hmm.
helped the teacher clean her house or weed her garden or whatever. And it was a constant flow of information. I think those days are done. I don't think we're ever going to go back to that. I'd love for us to, but I don't think we ever will. So the next best thing is doing what I'm doing now, is talking to you, talking to people and doing videos, because people love videos.
Oh yeah, they do.
Do another reel. But so much of what I see on video is just, okay, I'm going to try to find a reasonably accurate word that also, uh, it's just crap. It's crap.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
I invented this thing, and not I invented this thing and it works for me, because that is actually how we learn. All of this is experiential. So you
Mm-hmm.
think up something and then you try it and then you try it again and you do a double blind test and all that stuff. No, but these are the people who just make something up out of whole cloth and then say, oh, and this is the gospel. And by the way, if you're not XYZ, you better not practice it. So I just wanted to do a book that would explain to folks that there there certainly is mystery in what we do, but there are just basic practical things that will get you to the place where you are competently practicing magic. And it
Mm.
doesn't require you to own a stack of books. So God knows I write books. I want people to write. I want people to buy books. I do,
Mm-hmm.
but I want people to actually practice magic and not to be afraid of it, and not to buy yet another book that they think is going to be the silver bullet. This is going to be the
Mm-hmm.
one that explains it to me and makes it really easy. And I know I just have to speak this arcane language, or I have to garble up some Latin, or I have to have all these special and expensive tools, when all you really need is your heart and your soul and your mind and these two hands. And that's all you need,
So,
period.
I mean, I really appreciate this, Byron, because many of us come out of very traditional backgrounds, and I also have seen a plethora of books and a plethora of things, particularly on social media, TikTok in particular, of individuals who are saying this is the
Yeah.
way. And it reminds
Yeah.
me of so much else that goes on in the world and so much of our issues in the world. And where do you think, I agree that it would be great to see people come back to their teachers' houses, because that's like you, that's how I learned, is living with my teachers. Um, and we're not seeing that now. But what do we say to those individuals that are truly searching? I know you say it in your book, but in a more pointed way, what do we say to them when they're really searching, but all they're doing is finding mountains of books with contrary information that is telling them that every one of those things is the only way? How do we help them? How do we get the message across?
Well, first thing I'm going to say is, if somebody tells you that their way is the only way, then you need to not listen to them anymore,
Mm-hmm.
because there are lots of ways to do things. And I do my best, and I'm not perfect at it, heaven knows, but I do my best to say, this is what works for me. And I've been doing this for 50 plus years. So whether you see validity in that or not, know that I have a track record of doing a fair amount of magic, some of it's substantial, and this is what I do. But the
Mm-hmm.
other thing that I believe many people are nervous about or scared of is that they actually are as powerful as they want to be, as they want to
Mm-hmm.
think they are. And
Okay.
I find far too many people who they won't say it, but you know that they don't actually practice magic. They read about it and maybe they dress a certain way that makes them feel witchy. But when it comes to a problem in their actual everyday life, they don't practice. They don't
Mm-hmm.
practice enough to be
Mm-hmm.
able to address the situation head on as a
Mm-hmm.
magical practitioner. And this set of crafts and abilities is nothing if it is not experiential. It's all about trying and failing and trying and failing and trying and failing and finally trying and succeeding. And to remember what it was you did, either the sequence of events or the way or the protocols you used to get there. But if I could imbue people with one bit of conventional wisdom about magical practice, is that you have to practice it until you're good at it. And I use music all the time to say, I am a terrible fiddler. I'm awful at it. And I long to be a mediocre fiddler. I would, in fact, be mediocre and maybe even better than mediocre if I practiced, but I don't practice enough. And I get all hardwired about, well, I'm going to open up the case, and the first thing I've got to do is tighten the bow, and then I've got to make sure all the strings are still good, and then I've got to tune it, and then by then I'm just exhausted from, and I don't practice as much as I should. Whereas if I set it up so that 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I played the fiddle, then all that preparatory stuff, I would be so excited about getting it done because now I'm gonna get to play the fiddle. So that it's the same way with anything that we do, and magic, since that's what we're talking about particularly. So my recommendation always, because every damn youngin in the world, and when you and I were those same damn youngins, we felt exactly the same way. Every damn youngin wants to talk to a dead person, and they want to conjure up a demon. I'm going to conjure me up a demon. Well, then what the hell are you going to do with a demon? Once you've conjured one up, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to have it make supper for you, wash your damn dishes? No. Oh, no. But then I can go on social media and say, I conjured a demon. It's sitting in the living room. That's just crap. The
Mm-hmm.
first thing I want people to do is to figure out what you need. Like, I live in a big tourist town, and downtown is a focal point of that tourism. So in October, when everybody and his brother is here to drive up on the parkway and see the trees change color, it is really, really hard to get parking downtown. So if you live in a place where it's hard to get parking, it would be wise for you to perfect a parking spell that always works. Always
Mm-hmm.
works. Because that's practical. That's something you need. So that rather than focusing on conjuring up a demon or talking to, I don't know, Kennedy, what if you thought about what your needs are, your basic literal needs? Do you need a parking space? Do you need to get a job so that you can afford to buy all the damn books so that you can avoid practicing magic? Do you need to work on your own health or the health of people that you love? So figure out what your basic magical needs are, and then work on and talk to other magic workers about what they do. Work on those things, and once your life feels like there's a foundation underneath it, and that you're not blowing with the wind, whatever the latest craze is going to be, then I promise you, your life will be better. It won't be perfect because nobody's life is perfect. But if you know how to do those foundational things and you practice them, then when you are told in 6 weeks the company you work for is going to close and you're going to get a month's severance, but you need to get your ass in gear and find a job right now, rather than panicking, you're going to do. And I pride myself on being a belt and suspenders magic worker. So the thing you're going to do is you're going to light a candle, you're going to get yourself grounded, and you're going to say, let the job that meets all my needs, let that job see me. Not let me see it, let it see me.
Mm.
And then you're going to fix your resume, and you're going to add in all the stuff you left off, or maybe you don't even have a resume at all and you need to put together some kind of resume. You are going to ask all your friends if they're hiring, where they work. I mean, you're going to do the practical and the magical together. And together, that is a very strong force.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, because I like how you say, yes, you do the magic, but you also have to do your due diligence. You can't just be there and say, I'm going to do this spell and then the universe is going to be perfect for me. You've got to actually do the actual work, which is really awesome. So you have a new book that you're currently editing that I would love to see sooner rather than later.
When we were still ahead of the deadline for Small Magics to drop, I referred to Small Magics as the new book and Feral Church as the new book. So
Mm-hmm.
now the new book is
Fatal
called
churches, yeah.
Feral Church. And I finished it up and submitted it back during Samhain. Then it came back to me. My editor sent it back to me, and there were formatting things she wanted me to fix. She thought it was clunky. Parts of it were clunky. So I fixed all that. I sent it back in December. So that ball is in her court now. But I will be editing that book throughout the year. I think it's scheduled to come out about this time next year.
Okay.
So we got a good long time to fix and make better. And I'm the kind of writer who is so grateful to have a good editor. And I do have every place I've ever worked, I've had really good editors, because I feel like I vomit out 65,000 words, and some poor person at a publisher goes, "Okay, I think I can make this be a book." And then they work until they can. Bless them, all honor and glory to them. But this book, Alfred, I've never written a book like this before. I kind of knew what I wanted to do. And I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory on that one too. So 2.5 years ago, I was at Wisteria, Wisteria in Southern Ohio, when I heard that Carol Christ had died. And I never met her. I never went on any of those wonderful tours she did, but her work was foundational for me in the 80s. And as soon as that happened, as they say in the Pentecostal church, a burden was laid upon my heart. And that burden was to write a new book of goddess theology. Now, I didn't know how I was going to do it, but as soon as I recognized what it was, my first thought was, no, not me. Thanks. But then, whether I was being logical or the divines said, well, okay, look at it this way. You have been a lifelong goddess worshiper. You have been a priestess throughout your adult life to two fascinating deities that you actually serve as priestess. And you are one of the founders of a goddess temple. Who better to write this book? So once I kind of accepted that, then I did this thing, and I know this will sound crazy to some people, but not to you. I did the entire work as a path working, the entire book. So I did the introduction and the foreword and all that sort of set, and chapter 1 sets out what the book is going to do. And then I made notes where I would say, okay, in chapter 1, I want to talk about this thing, but I want to set it in this particular place. And then I would do, forgive me for the use of this word, I would do a shamanic journey to that place. And then I would just write down what happened. And those places are everywhere. They are in the tundra. They are in the northern prairies. They are in the downtown of a big urban area. They are underwater. They are in Appalachia. They are in the Gulf. And I would just say, this is how I want to do this. And I would go there. And the one that I think surprised me the most was going to the Akashic Record and
Mm.
how different it was from anything anybody has told me. And it's the way I have been doing it now for about 20 years. But
Mm-hmm.
as I did it this time, there were details about it that I'd been able to gloss over before. Because anytime I do that kind of work, I'm looking for a very specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just like, hey, look here, I'm in this great big library. What shall I do now? So so it is a path worked book of path workings, if that
Mm.
makes sense. And
Okay.
it's the subtitle is Finding Goddess in the Wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
And the wilderness is unpeopled areas. It's peopled areas, but it's also the wilderness that we all carry right in here with us all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a place that scares a lot of us. And we talk about doing shadow work. I
Mm-hmm.
know it's going to be terrible. Oh, I've set up this time to do this shadow work. I am finding again and again when you step into that consciously, when you step into the mystery of what that means, things are revealed that you never, ever would have guessed,
Mm-hmm.
ever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what Feral Church is. And I think a lot of people are excited about the name. It sounds intriguing,
Mm-hmm.
Feral Church.
Mm-hmm.
So, so yeah, that's what it is. And we are likely, knock on wood, if it all goes well in the editing, to see it in about a year.
Fantastic. Fantastic. This has been a lot of fun. Do you have a message that you want our listeners and our viewers to have? Um, I'm just going to open that up for you.
Well, the thing I am teaching and preaching all the time, I think, is pay attention to the land with which you dwell. Pay attention
Mm-hmm.
to it. It's not like you have to come into relationship with it because you already are in a relationship with it. Um, in my book, Seasons of a Magical Life, I refer to it as acknowledged kinship.
Mm-hmm.
And our pagan community we're so funny. It's like I live in the suburbs, I live in a small town, I live in a medium town, but one day I'm going to go to the country. One day we're going to have 100 acres and it's going to be, well, for most of us, that is never going to happen. Never. But the idea that the built environment in which you live is not nature is one that has hurt us again and again.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you're urban, whether you're suburban, whether you're rural, none of that matters when you're connecting with the land. So that's my big thing because I mean, at heart, I'm really an animist. I
Mm-hmm.
think everything has a soul, everything is ensouled, and all of that is holy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say that. And I'm also going to say if you want to practice magic, if you feel like that is a good way for you to move forward with your life path, then you need to practice it and you need to practice it a lot. And don't just read another book. Don't just buy another piece of fancy clothing or jewelry so that you get a witchy vibe or you have a witchy look. The way you are a witch, my friends, my colleagues, and my companions, is you are a witch if you practice witchcraft. And if you are not practicing witchcraft, you better find another name for yourself because that's what
Mm-hmm.
that is. Now, we all know if you're Wiccan, you're a witch with a capital W, and that's not what I'm talking about. Because some Wiccans practice magic and some Wiccans don't practice magic. But if we are talking about the folkloric practice of changing the world around you through through the harvesting of energy and the force of your will, then that is a practice that must be practiced. And I want to see more people doing it. And I want to see more people being generous with each other and going, wow, well, that thing you just said, that's not the way I do it. But I mean, if it works for you, that's good, rather than saying, oh, no, now I'm going to tell you the way I do it. And that's the only way it can be done. And if you don't do it this way, don't talk to me, and then unfriend me and unfriend everyone who are mutual friends. It's like, why? Why? Don't we have enough looking at the collapse of the environment, looking at the food shortages that we are already seeing in our communities? Don't we have enough to do without picking each other apart because of our
Mhm.
practice?
Mhm.
So that was a lot of things I said to the community. I can't,
That's
I can
awesome.
say just,
No, that's awesome, and I'm really glad that you said all that. So as a just a last thing here, Byron, I know that we can find all of your books on Amazon and other places, but in particular, if people want to contact you, what is the best way to do that?
oh, thank you very much. First, I'm going to say, if you have an independent bookstore close to you, order from them. Go to them, and if they don't have it, because in the Midwest you may not find my books, have them order it, because your local indie bookstore is going to be better to independent artists like myself than that place you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
They can reach me in social media. I'm often on Facebook, Twitter, occasionally Instagram, and I'm there as Byron Ballard, and there is, generally speaking, a picture of me. So you will
Mm-hmm.
know which one I am. Unbelievably, there's more than one Byron Ballard. And then you can reach me at my website, which is being revamped right now. So if you go there and it's glitchy, that's the reason. And that is myvillagewitch, all one word, .com.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Byron. I really appreciate that you took time to speak with me. It's always lovely to spend time with you. I don't get
It
to do it enough.
is. I
And
know, we don't. We don't.
we really need to, I need to try and fix that this year now that I'm done other things to try and spend more time with you. And I
Yes,
truly appreciate this.
it was
Thank
great fun. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure, and have a wonderful and goddess-filled day.
Thanks, you too.